I'm going to introduce our next speaker today. His name is Dr. Glenn Wilkerson. He's the president of the ARC Group, and he's also the founder of the Children's Center for Self-Esteem. So Glenn, welcome.
Thank you, Dori. It's good being with you.
Well, Glenn, can you give us a little information about what it is that you do and why it is that you have such a passion for kids and their emotions?
Sure. I was a minister for 35 years, and it dawned on me that all the kids are coming to me for counseling, whether it was from drugs, promiscuous sex, alcohol, school problems, relational problems, that it all basically comes down to a lack of self-esteem. And if kids don't value themselves, then they don't relate very well to the world around them. On the other hand, if a child does value herself, then she is conducive to really embracing the world as a friendly place and is able to engage in relationships. So it dawned on me that the way in which a child feels about herself is the way in which she relates to the world around her. So it's really critical that we help children with SEL, social emotional learning tactics and practices, so the child can value herself and learn how to relate to the world around her in a manner that is conducive to him or her leading a successful, happy life. So it's been about 30 years ago, I created the Children's Center for Self-Esteem, DBA, the ARC Group. And the purpose of our organization is to help adults assimilate the skills of providing unconditional love and care to children so that children value themselves and have high self-esteem and develop a positive self-concept. So I've been doing it for 30 years, working primarily with schools, community organizations, churches, organizations that have programs where they're helping adults, parents, or teachers to relate to children and to students in a manner that values and respects the child.
That is amazing. And I just think about like all the people that you've probably reached, not only just probably on one surface level, but also it'll extend generationally too for those families.
You know, the way that works is that parents typically parent the way in which they were parented. Teachers teach the way in which they were taught. So for parents, these parenting behaviors passed on from generation, and with the help of the ARC program, Adults Relating to Kids program, we enable parents to take an objective look at the parenting they receive from their parents and the behaviors that they received from dear old dad that were positive and affirming, to pass those on to the kids. Behaviors that were conditional, maybe even a little bit abusive, that dear old dad got from his parents. And so if possible, we can forgive our parents that just did the best they could do with what they knew to do, and instead embrace new and more appropriate ways of relating to our children so that our children feel valued and loved. And part of it is helping parents learn how to discipline behavior in a manner whereby the person of the child is respected and the child still feels valued. And once those new parenting techniques are inculcated, they're passed on to our children, to their children. And so a new family parenting dynamic is established. It's a wonderful thing to observe.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So from your experience, what are probably the most common parenting mistakes that parents typically make?
Well, I think that parents often feel like I have to make my child respect me and inculcate fear. You know, if you don't do this, I'm going to punish you. And we make a distinction in the ARC group between punishment and discipline. Punishment makes kids suffer in order to help them to learn. Discipline, the word itself means to teach. And we believe in teaching children to look at what they've done, if it's misbehavior, and imply consequences. Unconditional love does not mean that it's laissez-faire. You just let kids do whatever they want. It's important that you impose consequences for poor behavior and help kids to understand the reason for the consequences, to understand the bad behavior, and then they take responsibility for themselves so that that misbehavior does not occur. It means by the way, we did some research with the University of Texas School of Public Health. We discovered that a child's self-esteem is not engendered by performance. That was the old thought, the old self-esteem movement, that you help a kid to be number one or to make straight A's. And as they achieved, they'd feel good about themselves. What we've discovered is that a child's self-esteem is based upon a child's having a relationship with at least one adult in their life that gives that child unconditional love. It will say to the child, "You may not like what you're doing, and there will be consequences for bad behavior. Trust me on that. But I want you to hear this. You're my child, and I love you, and there is nothing you could ever do to keep me from loving you." That gift of unconditional love allows the child to value himself in spite of his mistakes and his imperfections. And that's the key to high self-esteem. So I think parents that are trying to get children to behave through corporal punishment, I think natural logical consequences are a better way of disciplining misbehavior. But parents that rely upon fear, I want my children to respect me. Well, there's a difference between fear and respect. Fear separates parent and child. Respect brings them together. It's important that children respect their parents, and respect engenders respect. When parents respect kids, kids respect their parents. And so when consequences are meted out, and the child understands the reason for the consequence, and particularly in a calm moment. Let's say that my 16-year-old boy, we're having trouble with curfew. He just got him a car and we're fighting over curfew. Now, if I just hammer him with, if you come in 2 minutes late, then the car's taken away for 2 months, and you, anytime you impose behavior that the child really kind of fears the consequences, I don't think it works very well. On the other hand, if we can work out circumstances in a calm moment ahead of time to say, it's important that you be responsible and have with your car. And if we have curfew, then you need to observe it. That's just the adult thing to do. So from this point forward, for every 10 minutes you come in late, you will sacrifice 1 hour the next time you go out. So if you're 20 minutes late, then you have to come in 2 hours earlier next time you take your car out. Now, don't you think that's fair? And negotiate it with them. So it's understood ahead of time. That's a natural and logical consequence of immature behavior. The child agrees to it. It comes in late the next time. The consequences are imposed. There's no arguing or yelling. There's no fear. It's just an adult transaction. I think it's important that parents learn how to do that. And our organization, our group, that's what we do. We help parents learn how to work with their children in a manner whereby you help children to understand the consequences for misbehavior and to engage them in a way whereby the consequences are natural, logical consequences of the misbehavior. The child agrees to it, and that agreement is respected. Well, that's a long answer to a simple question, but
it's not really
in short, I think that it's important that one of the mistakes we make is that we impose consequences that sometimes are irrational, sometimes use the corporal punishment, and it's fear-based, and I don't think that works very well. I think it separates parent and child. But if we can use natural and logical consequences and negotiate with the child before the mistake is made, then the consequences just follow naturally, and there's no disruption in the relationship.
I'm assuming that's probably easier to do when they're younger. and much more difficult to curtail as they get older.
Oh, I think this can be imposed at any point in the child's stages of growth and age, that we can sit down and say, you know, we've been doing this business of helping you to make responsible choices, been doing it ever since you were born. And let's talk about how we might learn how to do it differently, in a way whereby we negotiate consequences ahead of the misbehavior. And then when misbehavior occurs, we know what the consequences will be. There's no arguing about it. And I'm really respecting you as a person, my child, my son, my daughter, bringing you into this, into the decision-making process, us agreeing upon natural and logical consequences, and then you're honoring them when the misbehavior occurs. And I want you to know, no matter what you do, I'm going to love you, no matter what. I'll always have your back. You can count on me. You see, Harvard University did a study 3 or 4 years ago in which they discovered that a child's greatest hope of withstanding adversity and of being resilient in the face of adversity is to have the support of one caring adult who stands behind that child. So one caring adult can help a child to feel I'm valued, I'm cared for, but at least one adult, I can go to that person anytime that I need help. That person has my back. Oprah Winfrey says that it was her 4th grade teacher, Mary Tucker. Oprah says that she was abused terribly sexually and physically as a child. And it was not until her 4th grade teacher, Mary Duncan, introduced her to unconditional love. Said that teacher loved me no matter what. So it's the first time I'd received that in my entire life, and it changed my life trajectory. So just one adult, whether it's a teacher or whether it's a parent, who shows a child that I'm going to discipline this behavior, but you can trust me, I'm going to love you no matter what, can change the child's life trajectory, can give that child hope and enable that child to strive to be the best that they can be.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You make it sound so simple. But it is.
Well, it really is. It really is. I think the basic underlying factor of human relationships is unconditional love. That we can learn how to love other people, regardless of who they are or what they do. That's the greatest connector between people. All the major religions say that. You know, hate the behavior, but love the child, or hate the person, but love who they are as a person. Yeah. Excuse me, hate the behavior of a person, but love who they are as a person. Yeah. So it's loving people for who they are rather than for what they do. That's unconditional love, and I think it's life's great changer in terms of building relationships within marriages, within friendships, parent-child. It's just critical that we keep in mind that I need to be open to the fact that my child, my parent, my friend, my confidant is imperfect, and accept that, and to love them for who they are. And hopefully, well, not hopefully, when that love is poured out like that, it comes back to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I just love that idea of that unconditional love, because I think that's a very rare commodity in our current times. And it's sad, but it's true. There's so much more, I don't want to say hate necessarily, but dissension, you know, and even between parents and their kids. So that's just a great concept. So when you're teaching your SEL, the program itself, are you using books? Are you using, what kind of materials are you incorporating?
Well, I've written 3 books and have something like 15 manuals on it. Okay. It's a simple concept to teach. And the material I put out deals with specific instances when unconditional love can be applied at home and at school. And, we see so much in the media today about people relating to one another in mean, hateful ways, not just war, but in relationships with political standoffs with one another. And it's too bad that we can't see past that and understand that other people's thoughts and reactions and opinions are based upon what they believe to be true. And usually it's what media sources that they're going to. But behind all that, there's a person who desperately needs to be loved, cared for. And so with some of my best friends, we disagree vociferously on political matters, but we just don't talk about it. We love and respect each other for who we are.
Yeah, that's so
We
important.
always love the person.
And that's probably your biggest takeaway, right, for parents in general, is to genuinely, unconditionally love people.
Well, particularly the parent-child relationship, I think it needs kids. If kids are told, no matter what you do, now I'm going to discipline misbehavior, but I'm going to love you no matter what. You can always count on that. Now let's talk about the misbehavior and the consequences of your misbehavior. If kids hear that, it's a life changer. If they know that the parent is always going to be in their corner, no matter what, it's a life changer for a child. And it helps the child to value herself. And the way in which she values herself is the way she's going to relate to the world around her. And that's just a basic tool of human behavior. Loving kids for who they are enables them to love themselves, which in turn opens them up to view the world as a loving, kind, considerate place.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Fantastic. Well, Glenn, for today, we're going to have to wrap it up, but I appreciate your time and your wisdom in all of this. And I am okay to bring you back again very soon, if that's all right with you.
Sure. I'd love to visit with you some more, Dori. I appreciate what you're doing. And I think that this is a valuable service you're providing for parents. And I'm just glad to be a part of it.